No denying it, we live in a weird world. And it's getting weirder by the day. Roderick Cox, who goes by the name Laverne, was named Glamour's Woman of the Year. And that was years ago. As I film this review currently, posters of missing Jews who have been kidnapped by terrorists are being torn down because pointing out that Jews have been kidnapped is a form of racism? A growing number of young adults would rather now have a dog than a child, and a Taco Bell value meal sometimes costs over $10. The world has gotten weird. And Andrew Wilson is here with his book, Remaking the World, to tell us when and how the world became weird. And he has an unexpected cause to all the weirdness in the world today. While some would want to blame postmodernism, others the sexual revolution of the 1960s, and a lot of people like me would like to blame Karl Marx, Andrew Wilson blames 1776. And there was a part of me when I first saw a book that was blaming 1776 for our weird post-Christian world, I thought, Mr. Wilson, how dare you? 1776 brought us freedom, baseball, and fireworks. It made the world wonderful and not weird. And then I saw that Andrew was British. And I thought, okay, Andrew, let's take your bitterness because you lost the Revolutionary War and show me your worst. How has America made the world weird? And I gotta say, this is a book that builds and builds. And while it took a little bit to get me fully engaged, it would kind of be like watching a spider spinning the first thread and thinking, that isn't all that impressive. But once Andrew got into his web of weirdness, of all the things going on in 1776, I gotta tell you, I was hooked, and I loved Remaking the World. Let me tell you what Andrew Wilson means by the fact that our world is now weirder. Welcome to Rev Reads. If you want to discover more books that will help you learn about our fascinating history, please subscribe to the channel in order to stay up to date with the most current reviews. Also, please like this video, share it with other people because I want a lot of people to know about Remaking the World. Andrew Wilson in this book presents an argument that 1776, or probably more accurately the 1770s, was a decade that changed the world and made it as weird as it is today. Now, when he says that the world is weird, what he means is that it is Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic, ex-Christian, and romantic. It's not just weird, but it's weirder. And the amount of events around the globe that occurred in especially 1776, but also in the entire decade, was just astounding. This is a fascinating read, even if you don't agree with Andrew all along the way, where he writes on the significance of how the world became wealthier and global and moved away from Christianity. There's just crazy stories all throughout. On almost a daily basis while reading this book, I kept turning to my wife and saying, "Did you know? Have you ever heard? Let me tell you this story." If you're a pastor, you really need to read this book, if for no other reason than there are probably about 100 really good sermon illustrations scattered throughout the book, covering topics of economics, politics, war, globalization, and so much more. And all of these stories, in the end, they gel together to present a picture as to why the world is the way it is today. So while many of us feel lost and adrift in this postmodern age, we just cannot keep up with how we feel about things. We don't know what we can and can't say anymore. And it's weird, in an attempt to overuse that word, but it is bizarre how much of what we experience today finds its roots and its groundings that took place at the same time as the founding of America. And the thing that I was afraid about this book is that I've read the massive biography on John Adams, some other books about that Revolutionary War time period, and I was afraid this book would just simply be walking over ground that was already too familiar for me. But instead, this book is global in every sense of the word, probably more European than it is American, which makes sense because at this time period, America is pretty laser focused on that war with Britain. So we are not the primary drivers for industrialization at this time, or the launch of Romanticism, or the changes in the Christian religious life. And what I didn't realize was how ignorant I was of so many crucial events going on in Europe and around the world at the time of America's founding. As an example, the chapter on prophets and why Britain especially pushed forward with economic advances during this time was just a wonderful tying together of why the British people praised and valued experimental progress, but other people, such as the Chinese during this time, valued tradition over progress. So this alone, that this praising of progress will cause a nation to lean toward advancements. And to have those advancements, you need world-altering wealth. And then when you combine that with the British realization that they were so ignorant of so much of this world that they began seeking to find answers to questions that no one were ever asking until that time period. And putting that all together, it was just really great. And I also loved Wilson's answer for where we need to go when we feel lost in this weirder world that has a constant drive and a push toward the forward, toward progress, toward breaking traditions. And when we feel like when we can't keep up with the pursuit for wealth or profits, we can't find grounding by looking into ourselves. When we can't, what we need is free grace. So when we're asking, have I done enough? Or will I ever be enough? The answer is not found in being more or grasping for the next thing that's coming around the next corner. The key is to rest. The key is to receive the wonderful grace of Jesus. The key is to stop being obsessed with making my own identity in this world and instead rest in the identity that is freely given through the work of Christ. It ends up being grace that is the true antidote to the struggles of this weirder world. We live in a world today where there is really no excuse for anyone to fail to succeed or fail to advance beyond what their parents achieved. The knowledge of the world that was becoming connected for the first time thanks to the explorers of the 1770s, circumnavigating the globe, now all that knowledge is at our fingertips. Thanks to the Industrial Revolution now, we're no longer stuck on our parents' farm or as a servant in the feudal home where our parents labored. Self-publications have broken down all the barriers to the societal elites as well. If you're a great singer, just post a song of yourself singing on YouTube. If you're a great writer, just publish your own book on Amazon. So the only thing holding you back is you. And where did the mindset begin to take root? That all of this is resting on our shoulders. That you're the only one to blame if life didn't work out the way that you dreamed it was. Well, that type of thinking all started with the democratic and economic changes of 1776. The Declaration of Independence was in some way a declaration of independence to every individual person, that we can move beyond the small lives of our ancestors where they were trapped for generations. And it turns out this freedom, this opportunity, crushes our spirits. This is why we need Amazing Grace. And of course, Amazing Grace was written in the year 1772, and so it falls in line with all the amazing things that were going on in the 1770s. So I gotta say, I really enjoy this book. It's gonna sit right alongside Dominion as one of my favorite history books. It's filled with engaging stories. And also, if the quality of the printing of a book matters to you at all, Crossway really knocked it out of the park with this book. It feels great. It looks excellent. I mean, just look at the artwork inside the cover of the book. As far as all of the physical books I've gotten this year, this is just one of the best looking, most well printed books of the year. So congrats to Crossway on this. And I just want to say I highly recommend Remaking the World by Andrew Wilson.